so I'm going to ask you now, all of you, just to close your eyes. I want you to just take a nice deep belly breath in. I want you to, as you breathe in, I want you to breathe in through your nostrils. And I'm going to ask you to hold. And when I ask you to hold, it's almost like pushing and holding and squeezing all the air in between your eyes. And then let go. And when I ask you to let go, I want you to make a nice big sigh. Okay. So nice big belly breath in through your heart, through your throat, and hold. 3, 2, 1, and let go. Another nice long deep belly breath in through your heart, through your throat, and hold. 3, 2, 1, and let go. I'm going to do one more nice deep belly breath in through your heart, through your throat, and hold. 3, 2, 1, and let go. Just want you to enjoy this beautiful breath, this gift of life, this opportunity to just be present in the right here, the right now, but nothing to do, nowhere to go for the next hour, to be here. Spend some time with us in this circle. Make this time for you. So I want you just to continue keeping your eyes closed and just take nice deep belly breaths in and out, and in and out. And I would like you to scan your body to see if there's any tension, perhaps you're holding on to your shoulders, perhaps your jaws, your tongue, your throat, your chest. Just relax every part in your body. Arms, your stomach is nice and relaxed, pelvis, legs, feet, shoulders, everything is just nice and relaxed. Let's continue to breathe in and out. This beautiful, sweet breath allows us to stay alive, oxygenating our blood, our cells, our skin, our organs, our brain. Just appreciate this beautiful gift. You don't have to prove your worth to it. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to work for it. It just is. This is your right. Take up space. Enjoy this beautiful breath. This free gift. And just to feel physically your body just relax, nervous system calming down, feeling calm, centered, present. I want you to imagine now you're standing on a beautiful beach. You can feel the sand underneath your feet. Feel the sun gently stroking your skin. It's not too hot, not too warm, it's just perfect. You can hear the waves crashing nearby. You can even smell that salty airness and taste it in your mouth. Feeling so calm, feeling relaxed. And as you stand on this beach, just continue to breathe in and out. And as you do, I want you to imagine these two beautiful golden cords coming out of the soles of your feet, digging all the way down into Mother Earth. And I want you to go as deep and far and wide as you can possibly go. It feels good just to be present, breathing in the space. There in the center of earth, you see this beautiful vibrating black obsidian stone. And I want you just to wrap your cords around it, anchor yourself in. Feel that pull, feel that power, feel that love, that feeling of being held, being nurtured, being loved. Just enjoy this moment. I'm going to ask you now just to scan your body again. If there's any tightness or any feelings of worries or doubts or busy activities going on in your brain, which is just to gently let that go. Almost becomes like dark, murky water, and it just rushes down through your veins, through the cords, where it gets absorbed by this black obsidian stone and sent into the light. I'm going to ask you now to draw up all the energies that you seek, that you need, whether it's more love, more compassion, more health, freedom, creativity, opportunities, abundance, prosperity, joy, happiness, anything that you're seeking. Perhaps it's clarity, confidence, or courage. Just draw up that energy. Feel it. You can almost feel it vibrate through the cords into your body and activating into your cells. Continue to breathe as you take that in. You can feel your whole body just activate, feeling alive, feeling whole, feeling relaxed, sacred. I'm going to ask you now to set an intention for this week. Anything that you would like more of or let go of. It can be anything. Anything that you want or desire or need, don't want anymore. Just feel that emotion. You can almost imagine you writing it down on a leaf and then just gently blow it away and know that it's being taken care of. Trust. When you're ready, you can come back to the present moment, time and space, right here, right now. Your nervous system nice and resourced, calm, relaxed. As we're about to jump in and get started. Okay, so how is that for everyone? I host this every month, and it's free of charge. So anyone can come. So you're welcome to share it with anyone that you think would need to hear more about this. Something I'm really, really passionate about, and I will explain to you in a second why this is so important. So I want you just to hold on to your horses, because it is quite a lot of information we're going to go through. I do like to give you value for your time. I do appreciate you spending an hour of your time here with me, and together we can create #1 million rebels by 2030. So this is a campaign I started in just the beginning of the year to help people like you and me become resourced. And I truly believe that this trauma-informed training program is for anybody and everybody, whether you're a coach, a teacher, a training consultant. Oh, I see the letters all over the place. Even a personal trainer or a hairstylist. It really is for anyone, especially if you're in senior positions and in the forefront of of dealing with people who has experienced trauma. And of course, perhaps you've got lived experience of trauma and just want to get to know this topic a little bit more. This will help you to understand it from a different perspective. So I created the Somatic Trauma-Informed Training Program as an online program you can do on your own time. And we do, it comes from a somatic perspective. So it's about, we believe that trauma is stored in the body. So we'll talk a little through more about that. So my promise through this, my training program, is to help you become a more empathetic and resilient human, while you can impact and transform your clients' lives or the people that you work with in less time without losing revenue and energy. So this is a big concern for a lot of coaches and consultants. And though, you know, if you're a self-employed individual, it's quite a timely process, and it's a topic that a lot of people are afraid to talk about. It's whenever you mention the word T, the trauma, people just shut off and stop talking or stop participating. So this is the hashtag 1 million rebels by 2030. We're inviting people like yourselves to share your rebel story. So rebel stands for being resilient. It's having empathy, but not just empathy for others, but most importantly, starting with self-compassion, which can help you to truly have an empathetic viewpoint in life. Being willing to break the rules, and that is your old limiting mindsets, your old thought patterns. So I'm going to ask you just to keep an open mind throughout the process. It's a lot of information, perhaps some new ideas that you've not heard before. And that's how you evolve. This is the only way that we can change, is when we are getting uncomfortable. So I'm going to challenge your beliefs a little bit, perhaps. Could be uncomfortable. That's the only opportunity that we are able to grow. And most importantly, it's to lighten up. How can we keep our own lights alive? I'm a big advocate for especially women. We always end up doing everything for everyone else, and we forget about keeping our own light alive, keeping our own happiness alive. So how can we keep that in place? So if you are willing to be trying something new, I would encourage you to share your favorite story of where you've seen resilience or breaking rules or evolving or lighten up or whatever, one of those items, those words. Share a story on social media, use the hashtag 1 million rebels by 2030, and tag a friend to do the same. I mean, who knows, it might just be just a story or idea or thought that your friend needed to hear to get them out of their funk and move forward. Okay, so before we start, I just want to run through why me, because I get this all the time. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I don't have any medical background, and I get quite a lot of people that get annoyed about it, they get upset about it, because they think that for you to be able to be trauma informed, you need to have some sort of psychological training or background, and I do not believe that is true, and I will explain to you now why. So I did a TEDx talk in March this year where I talked about this, transforming trauma into happily ever after, because I do believe that trauma is actually a good thing. It can help you transform your beliefs, turn you into something stronger, something better, more resilient. I'm a certified trauma-informed hypnotherapist and acupuncturist, where we work a lot with the organs, the nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, all that fun stuff. I'm a mindfulness facilitator, and I wrote a book called Break Those Damn Rules, which was my personal journey of overcoming addiction and dealing with my different types of traumas. I'm now I deliver the Rebel Keynotes talk. I'm a trainer and a practitioner, and it's all CBD accredited. So what I believe is why I can speak on this, and I want you to also check in with yourselves. because sometimes the imposter syndrome can pop in and say, oh, why me? Why can I do this? And I've heard this so many times, and I do believe that every single individual should be trauma informed. You don't have to have some formal education, and you don't have to experience trauma, but this is my way of why I'm so deeply passionate about it. I've experienced all the different kinds of traumas that there is. I've personally overcome my addiction. I've interviewed hundreds of entrepreneurs, which successful business people that you would think, oh, they're so happy and successful and they've never had any trauma, where most of them have experienced trauma, well, basically all of them experienced trauma in one form or another. It doesn't escape you. Trauma is not for, it's not a poverty. There's no status attached to it. It is that really brings the equalizer in. Again, with my coaching programs and coaching leaders, managers, all of them have experienced some trauma or another. And through this trauma-informed training program, I've reduced my clients' healing journey time by nearly 50%. So normally when you go and see a counselor or a psychologist or whatever, you would go there for years. I very often could reduce the time half just by becoming trauma informed, and I'll explain that to you why that is so unique. Obviously, I study continuously on this topic, keeping myself abreast on this, and I've recently been accredited by or been funded by the NHS Tayside Charitable Foundation to deliver acupuncture, trauma-informed training and hypnotherapy to people struggling with addiction, anxiety, and PTSD in Tayside. So I just want you to know that you're in good hands, and I'm deeply passionate about what I do. And if you've got any questions, please just ask. You can just send a message here in the chat box, and I will get back to you. I respond as soon as I can. Okay. Okay, so you want to know what is trauma? Okay, so the first thing we talk about is trauma is undigested life experiences that you encounter when you lack the capacity, facility, or resources to manage the traumatic event effectively. Okay, so if you have read anything of Dr. Gabor Mate, which is an expert worldwide on trauma and addiction, he oftentimes says trauma is not the event itself, but how we respond to it. And how we respond to the event will dictate on the type of resources or the facilities or the capacity that we had either from a child all the way through to that experience. So that is why you will sometimes hear, but yes, siblings too, a brother and a sister growing up in the same household, and with a household where the father is abusive and the mother is an alcoholic. The daughter might end up in the same path, again, being abused and being an alcoholic themselves, and the brother stayed away and became wildly successful. And they say, oh, but you've got two choices. It's true, yes, we always have a choice. We never take that away from anyone. But everyone's capacity and our facility and our resources is different and unique to us as an individual. So we can never, ever compare and say, oh, but my trauma is bigger than yours, or I've experienced what you've experienced, so you should be okay because I'm okay. That's not fair, and that's not how trauma works. Okay, so what the next thing that I'm going to explain, and I hope this makes sense to you, the trauma loop, which was discovered by Dr. Peter Levine, and he's got a beautiful book. And if you do my program, I've got tons of resources in there that explains this really well. I'll explain it to you now. Okay, so this is what happens when our bodies are traumatized. So in the beginning, we've got this overwhelmed nervous system. So everything is attached into our nervous system. Every occurrence, everything that happens to us in our lives, attached in our cells, in our body, in our memory. So you must have at some point heard like, oh, why do you keep tripping yourself up? Or you're getting triggered. But it was, for instance, just the sound that you heard, and it reminded you of a traumatic experience. And then, it's past. You must just get over it. One cannot just get over trauma. It needs to release. It needs to close this trauma loop. So there's a beautiful analogy that I don't know if you've ever watched any of those wildlife wildlife documentaries where the lion is stalking the deer, and then the deer spot the lion and it starts running. The lion gets it, grabs it on his neck, and then what's the first thing the deer tries to do is try to fight and run away, right? That's our first instinct. That's our sympathetic nervous system, is our fight or flight. But after like maybe 30 minutes, the lion's teeth is just sinking in deeper and deeper, struggles and struggles, eventually just goes limp. It gives up. It plays dead. Okay, so that's another survival mechanism that we as mammals, we're all mammals, we have the same structure that we follow. So after we fight or flight and we realize that we can't get out, we play dead. And the playing dead, that's when, overwhelm sets in. That's when depression sets in. That's when suicide sets in. So it's almost worse than the fight or flight, because the fight or flight, you're still there. You're still willing to stay alive. It's that overwhelmed stage when we need to get seriously concerned about the trauma. So what happens after the lion, now he's holding onto this deer that he thinks is dead. He just drops it and he goes and find another deer, because he's like, oh, well, I've got my first kill. I'm going to go and get another one. And then the deer wait for a bit, see the lion walks off or runs off or whatever, and then it will slowly get up, and you will see its knees will like be a little bit shaky, and you'll see the whole body start shaking, completely shake. That is the trauma loop. That's the body's response, the trauma releasing from the body, so that then it can run away and get over it. You know what I mean? The deer is not going to stay traumatized every time a lion's around. Well, he does, but I mean, he's not going to need counseling after that. The trauma is released from the body. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't make sense at any point, please do ask. Just type in your questions and I'll answer it for you. Okay, so what happens? Trauma happens. We don't have the capacity. Our nervous system becomes overwhelmed, and this creates a stored energy, emotional energy. That's your survival stress. Just you're always humming, always always just that fight or flight. It's just always there. And what happens if you are unable to release this trauma from your body? You start creating painful narratives. So that's when the trauma stories are starting. I'm not good enough. I always get hurt. Men always treat me poorly. I deserve it. I don't deserve happiness. All these trauma stories start running in our minds. And then when it becomes too much, we create orphan parts. Now, the orphan parts is the parts of us that you almost don't believe, your inner self don't believe that you're not good enough, or that you deserve to be pained, that you deserve unhappiness. So a part of you leave, and that's your exiles. And unfortunately, what happens then? We keep repeating our patterns and our triggers, and it just keeps on. The loop continues. So another example would be, okay, so I broke my leg when in 2014, just had my baby, and I tripped. I just stepped off a little stone like this high, and I just my foot went in the wrong space, and I broke my leg. See, just having a baby, it took all the calcium and nutrients out of my body, so my bones were brittle. the first thing that they did when the ambulance came is they gave me morphine. So if you think about the gazelle, if the gazelle had some sort of painkiller and morphine, he would just lie there and he wouldn't be able to get up, or it would take a long time to get up, and that trauma would never release. It would never get released out of the body. So for the first 2 years after that, I couldn't bend down. It was the strangest thing ever. But I create such a narrative about this traumatic experience. I refused to bend down. I don't understand it. I don't know why. That was my trauma response. That was my trauma story. And I had to get a personal trainer who specialized in this kind of trauma, who had to come and work with me for months to help me get back onto just bending on the floor. I know it sounds really silly, but I couldn't bend. I couldn't bend on the floor. And it took months and months and months of lots of exercise, lots of release. And then eventually I was fine. I could bend down, I could touch the floor again. I didn't have such a fear of falling down again. So that's unfortunately how we go through life. So I don't know if you've had any similar situations or patterns perhaps that you, if anyone would like to share, you are more than welcome to just unmute yourself or send a message in the chat box. Is there anyone that would like to share something or ask a question? Are you all good? I'm going to assume you're all good. If I don't hear anything from you, I'm just going to assume you're all good. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to check in with giving you the 5 different types of traumas that we have. So the acute trauma is the big T. So that's the big T that everyone talks about. That's the single, the big event. That's your abuse. That's your rape, death, an accident. All these big momentous moments in your life or in someone's life, that is that big acute trauma. Now, unfortunately, that is not the only trauma, and that's why you are here to hear more about that. So the next one is developmental trauma, and that is the one that most people are suffering from without them even knowing. And a very, very, some might say, oh, but that's silly. That's not a trauma. If it changes your behavior, if it changes who you are, your thought processes, your belief system, your behaviors, because you didn't have the adequate resources, the tools, or the capacity to deal with that traumatic event, then yes, it creates an orphan part. So, for instance, say in school, you sat there and the teacher asked a question and you raise your hand and you answer and it's the wrong answer and everyone starts laughing and you just like starts crouching inside of yourself and you go all small and you like feel so stupid. And since then you've never answered a question again. That is a form of trauma. So that will keep playing up in your life in different scenarios. Perhaps you are now 30 years later sitting in an office environment and you still refuse to raise your hand and you can't progress in your career because you know if you raise your hand, someone is going to laugh at you, it's going to hurt you, it's going to be a traumatic experience. So we need to just be mindful of these experiences and not try not to be judgmental towards other people and say, oh, well, that's a small thing, just get over yourself. It was just someone shouting at you or someone just laughed at you. Everyone's capacity and resources are different. And yes, some people can get away with being laughed at and maybe they love it. And they become the class clown. Again, ask yourself a question, why do they become a class clown? This is not about making excuses for everyone for poor behavior. That's not what I'm saying here. But it is, I think it's important for us to be more mindful about where this trauma comes from and how it plays out in our lives. The class clown experience some form of trauma, and their way of getting attention is being laughed at. So that is their coping mechanism. And if you were like that, I've definitely been on that side of the fence. And that was my coping mechanism for years, until I overcame my addiction. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to be the class clown anymore. And it was quite an adjustment for my family and my friends to take me seriously now. Now all of a sudden I want to change my thoughts, I want to change my behaviors, I want to change who I am, and now everyone must change how they respond to me. It's quite uncomfortable for a lot of people when you go through change and dealing with these traumas. Okay, so the third one, and the one that probably most people are unaware of, is preconscious trauma. And preconscious trauma has only quite recently enough, I say recently, in the past 10 to 20 years, only started coming out more. And they've now proven that if a mother was traumatized during pregnancy, the body, it passes on to the baby. So you in your mother's womb wouldn't even be aware that you've been traumatized just by default from experiencing and living inside your mum's belly. There was this fascinating story about a woman who, she was in her 40s, and she was having a shower one day, and all of a sudden she just had a complete panic attack, and she would have like flashes of like being, she can't breathe, she couldn't move. And this kept happening, and she saw psychologists, didn't work, she went to doctors, and no one could understand what was going on. And then she found a somatic practitioner, and they talked through, they took her through hypnotherapy, and they found out the root cause. It was preconscious trauma from her grandfather. So her grandfather was in the Holocaust. So these things pass on, and we don't understand it. It's called epigenetics. And that's like a whole different conversation on its own, which I can't get into now. But yeah, so maybe a good little test that I would challenge all of you to do is go ask your parents. What sort of pregnancy? Ask your mum. What sort of, if your mum's not around, maybe a dad or grandfather or grandma, someone that's around that you can ask and say, what sort of pregnancy did mum have? Was she stressed? Was she anxious? Was she happy? Was she relaxed? Was she angry? What sort of pregnancy did she have? And then check in with yourself and see if you've got that subconscious traits of anxiety where no one knows why you're so anxious, but now you found out that your mom was very anxious with you during pregnancy. It's good for you to understand these things, because only once you understand these things, then you're able to change it. Okay, so we can't change what we don't understand, and that's why this is so important. We've got intergenerational trauma. This is quite evident, I think, worldwide. I'm from South Africa, and I don't know if any of you ever heard of the atrocities of apartheid, which was a really evil rule, a law that was where in the 80s in South Africa, where the government basically banned non-whites to live with white people. So non-white people, whether you were Indian, mixed race, Chinese, black, doesn't matter. So if you weren't white, you were classified as a non-white, and you had to live in a different city, a different area, suburb. They basically pushed them out into the outskirts of the cities, where they had to live in extreme poverty. They had different education. It was atrocity. It was definitely South Africa's biggest shame. And in 1994, when South Africa became free, Nelson Mandela became our first African president, and they started reintroducing, obviously creating. They aborted all those old laws. They created the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, which was a very good attempt to try and have people from all different sides, those that's been victims and those that's been the abuser, sitting in the same room, and it was an opportunity for those that's been hurt and abused over the years to voice their pain, to express their traumas and share how it traumatized them and hurt them for decades and their children. So anyway, that unfortunately that didn't last very long. I believe that should have stayed around for 20 years to try and heal the nation. But now, since 1994, South Africa has been free. It's been a free country. Now, over the past 20 years, there's even 30 years. So there's still a generation that's been born in a free country, raised in a free country, but they still feel that intergenerational trauma. They still feel the traumas from their parents or grandparents. So even though they didn't experience and live it, it has been passed on from one generation to another generation. And they want war. They want to fight. They want more freedom. They want the white people to be out of the country. So that is a very good example of intergenerational trauma, that doesn't leave the body just because the trauma is now over. Now they must get on with it. It doesn't work like that, okay? And I think you probably know about in the UK, you've got your own kind of intergenerational traumas here, in Europe and America, all over the world. Unfortunately, trauma doesn't escape any of us. The last one is collective trauma. Yes, the C word, COVID-19. Unfortunately, none of us escaped COVID-19, and we're still reeling of this traumatic experience that was thrust upon us. And all of a sudden, everyone must work home, where we were thinking, yeah, this is the best thing ever, unless you are a teacher or a parent, and you had to homeschool, you lost your job, lost your income, lost your family members, couldn't see your family members, some passed away. It's been deeply, deeply traumatizing for an entire society, an entire collective society, a global trauma that we've experienced from COVID-19. And then 2-3 years later, they're like, okay, back to work, everything's back to normal. And everyone's like, what the hell? Hold on. But we haven't even dealt with it yet. What? How can we just move on? And that's why we see the biggest time in history where mental health is at an all-time low. Depression, burnout, overwhelm, suicide, it's abuse. It's just at the all-time high. There's and that's because of collective trauma. They don't have the capacity and the facility and the resources to deal with that traumatic event, release it from our bodies, and move on. We were just like, get over it, move on. And unfortunately, that's not how trauma works. Okay, so we're going to just take a quick little break, and I'm going to ask you what came up for you. Is there anyone that has got any questions, would like to discuss or ask anything? Just participate. And you can just unmute yourself. Ali and Jody, Victoria, you all fine? Got no questions?
Hi there.
Hello.
I'll speak in the midst of, and I'll put my camera on, not to be rude. Hello.
Hello, there you
I like
are.
your analogy of using apartheid. Yeah, hi there. I like your analogy of using the apartheid. That is relevant to what's going on after COVID at the moment with mental health.
Yeah.
And the DNA impact of trauma.
Yeah.
I've studied epigenetics, and it just makes sense to me, but when you try and explain it to other people, they think you're crazy and stupid, because my 5th great-grandfather was Captain George Duff, who was he lost his head with a cannonball when he was on the Mars.
Wow.
During the war. Now, in relation to that, I've had 3 strokes. My dad's had 2 strokes.
Wow.
My dad's dad had a stroke. And it goes on and on and on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is epigenetics. And
It's
that might be interesting
fascinating.
for the others that are here. Yeah, totally. It blows my mind, literally in a
Wow.
matter of speaking.
Wow.
But how have I recovered? How have I recovered?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're studying because it's starting to come out now. The people are starting to make sense with it. It's deeply complicated. So,
Yep.
that's what you.
Very complicated, and acceptance and understanding. I've just done an MRes in health research, and my focus was on SAT abuse, so sexual abuse, trauma, rape,
Wow.
of mainly women and children, but also looked at men as well.
My goodness.
And what is prolific is the impact of trauma that an abuser, so a perpetrator who is I suffered sexual abuse as a child.
Okay.
And ironically, the same individual abused my children.
Oh.
Again, that's the nervous system and the DNA that's passed on to the womb of the children who experienced the trauma through myself. Yes.
Oh, Victoria.
So for those that may not understand it and sit, it's okay. Listen, I fight for justice. The problem we have, I mean, the latest critical research that you can look at without bias of systemic failures or bias in any systems that are there to support survivors, not victims. I hate the word victim. 2020, there's a really great research document that came out. So I might email it over to you about the impacts, genetical impacts of DNA in relation to trauma. Yeah,
wow.
in 2020, lockdown at home with the COVID, it was a click moment because of all the other aspects of trauma that I've studied. So,
please, I think that will be fascinating. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing
that's
that.
Okay. That's okay.
I will edit this part out. So if anyone else wants to speak, don't worry about it. I won't share our conversation on with the other groups. I'll just edit out these conversations that we had and share the rest.
I don't mind it being shared because part of the problem of healing is the silence and stigma around abuse.
Yeah. So true.
I don't mind people, and I don't mind people knowing it's what I do in daily life. And
a few things, and this is just someone who did the program, saying learning about the different traumas and how they affected my view of the world, helped me to understand myself better, and I'm much kinder to myself as a result, which makes me less anxious. And I thought that was quite profound. It literally changed my life, and I'm not going to lie about that or pretend any other way. It honestly, becoming trauma informed was almost like the last puzzle piece that I needed to understand more, because I thought there's nothing that no one can teach me about or learn about traumas until I became trauma informed from a somatic perspective. So I am trying to encourage as many people to take up this program. I'm making it really, really affordable. And these are different modules that you can learn and study. And it's only £111, so £111 for the entire program. And it's certified, so it gives you 10 CBD points. So you'll become a certified trauma-informed practitioner. And learning all about the impact of trauma, the neuroscience of trauma, emotions, self-care techniques, the connection. It's beautiful. I'm really, really proud of this program. The link between trauma and addiction, role of attachment, there's tons. And we've got also the happiness program. That's part of it. So some of the objections, what I sometimes hear is, I'm not qualified, or I have no time. Again, you can do it in your own time. It's an app on your phone. Just download the app on your phone, listen to the videos. Or some people say, but I don't work with health and wellness industry. Unfortunately, trauma is everyone's concern. and I don't have money, I'm more than happy to do payment plans for you. You pay £33 over 3 months. I just wanted over 4 months. I just want as many people as possible to have access to this, so you can enrich your life and those around you. Yeah, this is another person who's done one of the programs, and it says, you encouraged me to rethink my attitude of life, especially towards myself, reminded me of the importance of being my own best friend and consideration into what I feel in my body. And that's something we touch on quite a lot, is how does it feel in your body? How can you create a safe space to come back into your body? And whether you, again, work with children, whether you work with people that has experienced trauma, or you've experienced trauma yourself, this is honestly, there's so much here. I just want as many people as possible with it. So if you want it, please let me know. We will be doing a group coaching session in October. You also get access to the 21-day Breaking Habits Journal, the Happiness Masterclass, tons of resources and material in there to help you help people at the same time, also to ask to be more trauma informed, to be more sensitive. I do bring in the strands of the Scottish government's laws around trauma informed. So I do try to, and tons of resources about other people who's been studying this, and books and interviews that we've done. So yeah, that's it. I would really like to hear from you. So if you've got any questions or interested in talking through more any of this, I am available if you want to stay behind, or you can just send me an email afterwards, and we can have a discussion.